Hello, Steve Stein here from Lessonface.com, and welcome to the next installment in my improvisation series. Let's just start off by reviewing a little bit of what we did last time to make sure that you're caught up. What we talked about last time was learning all 5 of the minor pentatonic positions in A, and learning all 5 of the major pentatonic positions in A as well. And then we also talked about the notes on the 6th string with a shortcut to be able to memorize those. And then finally I talked to you about a technique that I call meandering, where you're just kind of brainlessly moving around the fretboard at a tempo, trying to see how long you can move to gain strength and knowledge of your fretboard to see how long you can actually last without having to stop. And then from the technical standpoint, what we did was we used a metronome to keep trying to bump up the speeds to see how well you could do that meandering technique. So this month what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing from those 3 categories again. So our first category is the absolute understanding category, and what we're going to talk about this month is chords. Now again, you probably know all your chords, but it's just really important to make sure that we do know everything that we need to know in terms of standard chords that we play. So let's just start with that. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to start making sure that you know the essential 10 open chords. And you can use other fingerings than I use, and it's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure that you know those. There's 6 majors and 4 minors that we really need to make sure that we know. Ultimately, what's happening is we're going to lead into what's referred to as a caged chording system, and that's going to come later. But right now what we want to do is we want to take those open chords and make sure we know those. So the first one I want you to do is an A major chord. And again, it doesn't matter what fingers you use. Okay. Make sure that you know C major, D major, E major, F major, and again, if you play it as a bar chord or something like that, that's perfectly fine too. And then G major, and then we've got our minors. We've got A minor, B minor, D minor, and E minor. So 10 essential open chords that you should know. A, C, D, E, F, and G, that gives you 6. And then A minor, B minor, D minor, and E minor, that gives you 4 more, okay? So for this month, I want you to make sure that you know all of those, again, on an absolute level, that there's no question when you go to make those chords that you can make them comfortably and you can make them quickly. A couple quick notes about anything that you're learning, whether it's scales, whether it's chords, anything like that. The first thing is, to this absolute understanding concept, is visualization. If you can't see it, you can't play it. So if you look down and you're trying to see the 5 positions of minor pentatonic and you can't see them, you're not going to be able to play it. And even if you do, again, like I talked about last time, you're going to be seeing it with blinders on. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to look down and see, a buffet of everything that you've got going on in this fretboard. And we're going to see multiple layers of it as well. The first layer we've got is minor pentatonic. The second layer we've got is major pentatonic, and ultimately we're going to talk about how to put those 2 together. Now we've got another layer, which are these chords. So we've got these open chords that we're learning how to play, okay? 3 things I always tell students when it comes to chords or scales. Number 1, visualize. If you can't see it, you can't play it. Number 2, with chords, a technique called bouncing, where you take your fingers and you pick them up, and you hold them, and then you set them back down. What you're ultimately trying to do is teach your hand muscle memory. You're training your hand to make the shape. A lot of times we'll make a chord and then we'll strum it for 5 minutes, which is great for the right hand, but the left hand really isn't learning much. If we take and get used to pretending like, for instance, my hand is super glued into this D major position, and I lift it up and I hold it, and then I set it back down. If they all go to the same spot, I'm doing it right. Because if you think about it, the real efficiency to chord movement, whatever chords they are, is being able to switch while you're in motion, right? If I'm on a G and I want to go to D, I don't want to wait till I get there to make the chord. I want to make it while I'm in the air, okay? If I'm making bar chords or whatever it might be, it's exactly the same thing, so bouncing. And then the third thing to try and work on with chords is cleanliness, trying to get them to sound right, strum the correct strings and all that sort of thing. So those are your essential 10. Then what we want to do is we want to move on and start talking about power chords. Okay, the 2 styles of power chords that you and I are going to be discussing are 6-string power chords and 5th-string power chords. So real quick here, our 6-string power chord is going to be built using 3 fingers. I'm just going to go up to A again on the 5th fret. Okay, but you should know those notes on the 6th string at this point. But I'm going to put my first finger on the 6th string, 5th fret. I'm going to put my ring finger on the 7th fret of the 5th string. I'm going to put my pinky on the 7th fret of the 4th string. And when I play a power chord, I can only strum these top 3 strings. So I got to make sure that these bottom ones are deadened out, and I do that with my first finger. I lightly touch those strings to deaden them. Okay, and that's how I get the sound of a power chord. Now, some people like to play a power chord with 2 fingers instead. That's perfectly fine. You can do that as well. If you do it with just 2 fingers like this, okay, then what you want to make sure is that you're deadening out the 4th string as well, so the bottom 4 are deadened. Now, the nice thing about power chords, the reason people like power chords is because they're very easy to move around, and the shape stays the same no matter where you go. So I can take the shape and go wherever I want, and I can also do the same thing on the 5th string. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop either my 2-finger or my 3-finger power chord down 1 string, and now I'm going to strum those 3 strings, or 2 strings, whichever one I'm doing. Again, I'm going to deaden out the strings underneath here with my index finger, and I'm actually going to deaden out the 6th string with the tip of my index finger. So if I would accidentally hit this, you won't hear it anyway. Now, if you think about it, the reason we move into step 2, this phrasing thing, is to learn how to put all this together, but we can't put it together if we don't know what we're doing. So what we've got so far are these open chords, the 10 open chords. We've got these power chords on the 6th string and the 5th string. But these power chords, we have to give them names. And that's why, another reason why we're learning the names of the notes on the 6th string. So if I take this power chord right here, it's referred to as a 6th-string power chord, and I go to the 7th fret with my first finger, this is a B power chord. And I know that because I memorized this note right here as being B. This is a G power chord. Okay? This is an A power chord. This is an F power chord. So there's power in knowing what the notes are on your 6th string. So if somebody says, hey, I need you to play an F sharp chord, F sharp power chord, you know where F sharp is now from our conversation last time. You know F is here and G is here, so F sharp is in between. So you could make a power chord right there. That's absolute knowledge. Relatively simple in terms of playing chords, but it's still absolute knowledge. You want to be able to put those together. So number 1, being able to make the chord, which is kind of a technical thing, and number 2, being able to figure out where you're supposed to go, which is more of a theoretical thing. Okay, so we got power chords on the 6th string. Well, we've just learned how to do power chords on the 5th string as well. So it's time for us to start learning the notes on the 5th string. And again, you're going to have a chart that has the notes on the 5th string labeled. The 5th string, when you pluck it open, is A. So again, if we use 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, those dots on your fretboard, and again, if you don't have all the dots, it's okay. You can still think of it as odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. Okay? We're going to try and parallel those against the notes that we're playing. So when I pluck the 5th string, I hear A. But when I go to the 1st fret, which is a 1, it's not B, it's A sharp. So I have to go to the 2nd fret. This is B. So on the 6th string, this was F. Well, on the 5th string, I got to move over to the 2nd fret to get B. Then we're back on track. I got C at the 3rd, D at the 5th, E at the 7th, and then 8th and 10th surround this last dot again, just like they did on the 6th string. So if you missed the last series that I did on this, the first video of this, you're going to want to go back and watch that. So we've got the notes on the 6th string. Well, now we're learning them on the 5th string. So we got A is open, B is at the 2nd, C is 3rd, D is 5th, E is 7th, and then F and G surround this next dot, this last dot. So I want you to memorize those notes again, just like you did on the 6th string, exactly the same way. Absolutely memorize them. Don't relatively memorize them. Well, where is E? Let me think. Because whenever you're under pressure or you're nervous, you're going to forget those kind of things. So you want to know exactly what they are. Now, at this stage in the game, because you've learned the notes on the 6th string and you're now going to learn the notes on the 5th string, you also want to cross-reference them. So if you want to know where C is, find it on the 5th string and the 6th string. If you want to know where G is, find it on the 5th string and the 6th string. Okay? As we keep learning new strings, we're going to keep cross-referencing all of those notes. So we learn to see them not only moving this way, but we see the relationships moving this way. That's how we start truly mastering our fretboard. Okay? So we've got our power chords, we've got our open chords, we've got our notes on the 6th string from last time. We've got the notes on the 5th string now from this time. And now the next thing we want to do is we want to start learning the bar chords as well. I'm going to give you a 6th string bar chord and a 5th string bar chord, major and minor and 7th shapes. Okay, so we're going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. Again, the great thing is you can watch the video as much as you need to, and again, you can always get a hold of me through lessonface.com with questions about things. So, the 3 shapes I want you to memorize on the 6th string are the major bar chord, which again, I'm on A now, so this is A major. The minor bar chord, which you take the middle finger off. And the 7th bar chord, which is where you take the pinky off. Okay, now all of these shapes that I'm doing are actually coming from the E chord. E, E minor, and E7. All I'm doing is I'm adding this bar in front, which is raising the pitch. So these 2 worlds are clashing. The open chords that I'm learning and the notes that I'm learning across the 6th string are coming together, and they're creating these bar chords. So E major becomes F major, becomes F sharp major, G major, G sharp major, A major, and so on, all the way up the fretboard. So major, minor, we take this one off, and 7th, we take the pinky off instead. Okay, then we move on to the 5th string. The 5th string, you're going to have major, minor, and 7th. And all of those chords are coming from the open chords A, A minor, and A7. So all bar chords are open chords that you're moving up and down the fretboard. That's why it's so important that you know your open chords, okay? Because we're going to be moving those up and down. Now, needless to say, major and minor chords are way more important for the most part than 7th chords are. You know, we absolutely use 7th chords, but we use on a daily basis, we use major chords and minor chords quite a bit more when we're playing pop music or rock music or that sort of thing. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about that major, minor, and 7 on the 6th, and major, minor, and 7th on the 5th. So you just simply choose what note you want, and then you choose the shape you want or the color you want. C minor. So I go up to C, and I make minor. Or on the 5th string, I go to C, and I make minor. And I get the same chord. I get the same chord regardless of where I go. So that's the next step for us, is learning the power chords, the open chords, and the bar chords. Now a bar chord, one last note to make here, a bar chord and a power chord are the same thing. If you look at the power chord, which is the top 2 or 3 strings, and you look at the bar chord, all I'm doing with the bar chord, of course, is I'm barring across the rest of the strings, and I'm adding on this note, which is making it sound major or minor. So the key to remember about power chords is power chords don't want to sound major or minor. They sound like power chords. So a bar chord is the one that really is the bigger sound that makes it sound happy or sad or whatever it is you want to call it. Okay, power chords want to avoid that kind of sound. They stay a little bit masked, if you will, when you're playing power chords. So that's what I want you to think about with all of the chords that you're learning. Now, if we move on to step 2, which is the phrasing element, last time we were talking about meandering. Okay, well, we're going to start moving into physically talking about phrasing. So this month, what I want you to do is I want you to continue doing the meandering that you were doing last time. Hopefully it's coming along using the metronome and everything. But I want you to start learning how to stop in various places to start creating phrases, starts and stops. Now, again, we're going to start adding colors to these things and talking about how it works. But at least for now, instead of just going... What I want you to start doing is I want you to start thinking about how you're going to move. Still not overly musical yet, but we're learning how to pause. Okay? The question is when we pause, what kind of phrases are we making? Are they all the same length? And that's what I want you to think about this month. Is everything that you're doing sound like the same sentence over and over and over? Or are you able to start and stop in various places to make longer phrases or shorter phrases, different kinds of things like that? Be aware of that. Higher phrases, lower phrases. We're going to get into dynamic contrast and all sorts of things coming up. But that's what you're going to start doing with your meandering now, is start utilizing pauses. So you're going to meander, and then you're going to stop. And then you're going to meander, and then you're going to stop. But you're going to think about the length of the phrasing or the meanders that you're doing. You're thinking about the phrasing of that, how long they are. And you're trying to varietize that. And also get it in your head that it's okay to stop for a while. Like if you go... Now you'll notice how the technique is fitting into this as well, because again, to be able to play at a certain tempo, I have to be able to alternate pick, maybe jump over a string or whatever. And again, we're going to talk about all kinds of these things. But I want you to focus on that element of meandering slash technical prowess of being able to move across your fretboard. So let's focus on all of that this month. And again, please let me know at lessonface.com if you have any questions about anything. I'd be more than happy to help you. So have a great day.